Okay, that's a little difficult to follow my good friend from Philadelphia County who gave really quite an outstanding remarks in support of this legislation. I think it's important to recognize a few simple points. First of all, this is about photo identification. Folks, when I go to the gym, which isn't very often, I have to present a photo ID. If you buy Sudafed from a drugstore, they ask you for photo ID. I've had people come up to tell me that when they buy spray paint or particular glues from Michael's or Walmart, they're asked to present a photo ID. My grocery store actually has one of those places where you can buy a 6-pack of beer. I went to get some. I had to present a photo ID. The fact of the matter is, when you go to the airport to check into security, I'm always running. I'm there at the last second, and I've got to reach into my wallet, find my ticket, and present photo ID. I want to go and get a permit from my county with respect to carry a firearm. Guess what? You present a photo ID. Today, it is a society that is moving more and more to making sure that you are the individual you purport to be. This is really not much in terms of substance. It's just saying, hey, when you come to vote, can you present a photo ID? And the reality is this legislation is trying to make it very accommodating with respect to being able to show photo ID. Number one, you can present your driver's license. And if you don't have a driver's license, you can get one for free. You can also use a U.S. passport, a U.S. military ID, an ID card from a college or university, an ID card issued by a Pennsylvania care facility, or an employee photo ID issued by a government entity, including municipal and county governments. So House Bill 934 is an important piece of legislation, but it's also a very simple, straightforward piece of legislation. Hey, can you present a photo ID? Now, there's a good reason for presenting photo ID. What is the foundation of a democracy? Your vote. And it's one person, one vote. And to make sure that your individual vote matters means that somebody else cannot be abusing the system to be voting for somebody who has passed away and on a roll, or somebody is doing impersonation. We cannot have those types of frauds for which we have examples of. Whether it's once or 1,000 times, anytime that occurs, devalues each and every one of your votes and each and every one of our constituents' votes at the polls. One person, one vote is the crux of a functioning democracy. The crux. Now, I would agree with many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that America has been about the expansion of enfranchisement, about the expansion. The Civil War was fought about citizenry for our citizens and the freedom from slavery, and that came about with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which made it clear that each and every citizen was entitled to due process and the rights completely afforded by this country and the ability to vote. And in the 1920, the right to vote was expanded to women in this country who long had not had that opportunity. And in the 70s, while we were fighting in the Vietnam War, again we expanded voter enfranchisement to those who are 18 and older, because if you can go to war and fight for this country, you should be able to vote. And we eliminated, I agree, property holding requirements. Absolutely. And the key here is this. A voter ID is just saying that every citizen who is entitled to vote should be able to vote, and every citizen who votes should be sure that their vote hasn't been diluted by somebody else's fraud. Now, the Indiana law was upheld by the United States Supreme Court in a 6-3 decision. Justice Stevens, many who would contend was certainly not a conservative on the bench, but Justice Stevens' opinion said this: there is no question about the legitimacy or importance of the state's interest in counting only the votes of eligible voters. And we cannot conclude that the statute imposes burdensome requirements on any class of voters. The decision cited the finding of a district judge that plaintiffs had not introduced evidence of a single individual Indiana resident who will be unable to vote as a result of this law. And folks, in 2005, after the contested election for president, there was a building confidence in United States elections and the report of the Commission on the Federal Election Reform. And its leaders were former President Jimmy Carter and James A. Baker III. And quote from the letter from the co-chairs: "We are recommending a photo ID system for voters designed to increase registration with a more affirmative and aggressive role for states in finding new voters and providing free IDs for those without driver's license." The executive summary said, "To make sure that a person arriving at a polling site is the same one who is named on the list, we propose a uniform system of voter identification based on the real ID card or an equivalent for people without a driver's license. To prevent the ID from being a barrier to voting, we recommend that states use the registration and ID process to enfranchise more voters than ever. States should play an affirmative role in reaching out to non-drivers and provide photo IDs free of charge. There is likely to be less discrimination against minorities if there is a single uniform ID than if poll workers can apply multiple standards. In addition, we suggest procedural and institutional safeguards to make sure that the rights of citizens are not abused. And they do propose the use of provisional ballots that could be counted if their signature is later verified. This is all component parts of this straightforward House Bill 934, based in significant part on the state of Indiana's statute. Now, a recent article in Capital Wire even cited certain strategists from the other party that indicated that it really wouldn't change things that much. And that, yes, it is true most voters would be required to show a photo ID, but that this could be easily accommodated. In fact, according to PennDOT, 9,788,000 citizens have either a state-issued driver's license or a state-issued photo ID. Census data indicates that there are 9,910,000 people in Pennsylvania that are 18 and older. Right now, there's only a gap of a little over 100,000 folks that we need to go reach out and make sure they have either a driver's license ID or a non-driver's license photo ID. That can be accomplished over the summer. Folks, this is a common sense approach. It is not overreaching. It is not designed to suppress voter turnout. In fact, study after study has shown that it has not suppressed any voter turnout. A good friend and colleague of mine on our side of the aisle specifically pointed out that in Indiana, the incumbent president won the state of Indiana after voter ID was implemented. The fact of the matter is, this is real reform. It's common sense reform. And I reach out to all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. I actually believe we share a common goal, a similar purpose, an objective that every citizen have the right to vote once and each and every time in every election. One person, one vote, the foundation of a functioning democracy. Thank you very much.